You don't want to miss out on some great rates on bonds right now, but you don't know where to start. T-bills, T-bonds, or TIPS. Did bond yields go up last week? Plus the upcoming week's auctions and yield expectations for some of those auctions. Hello, members, super savers, and bond course fans. I hope you're having a good week. These are the 3 topics that we'll be covering in today's update video. As usual, we'll start this Treasury update video with our Diamond NestEgg community question of the week. Should you start with T-bills, T-bonds, or TIPS if you're new to bond investing? Plus, how might this change if you're not so new to bond investing? So, T-bills, or Treasury bills, are short-term treasuries issued by the U.S. government with maturities of 1 year or less. Do note that in the context of this question, I will use T-bonds or Treasury bonds to also mean Treasury notes. So essentially, all Treasury bonds and notes with maturities of more than 1 year, just to keep things simple. Before we start, here's our front of video disclaimer. For a detailed disclaimer, please refer to the end of this video. Let's dive in now, folks. Here's our Diamond NestEgg community question of the week. Do pause the video here if you wish to read through the details. But to summarize, our super saver member does not want to miss out on some of the current great rates. He's new to our channel and to bonds and wants to learn as quickly as possible. Should he start with T-bills, T-bonds, or TIPS? We get this question quite often, and my answer to this Diamond NestEgg member who asked this question, and to any one of you watching this who's also relatively new to us and or to bond investing, is start with buying T-bills at auction for these 5 reasons. Reason 1, you can start with relatively small amounts, as low as $100 with Treasury Direct and $1,000 with most of the leading brokers. Reason 2, you can start with short maturities, as short as 4 weeks, in fact. There's no need to jump into a 2-year or 10-year note with $10,000 or $50,000. Start by buying a small amount of a 4-week T-bill, for example. That makes clicking that buy button a little bit less scary. Reason 3, you can start any week of the year. 4-week, 8-week, 13-week, 17-week, and 26-week T-bills are auctioned off every week. So give yourself a few days or weeks to watch the market and learn about T-bills, and then jump in and make your first purchase whenever you're ready. Reason 4, T-bills are very liquid if you buy via a brokerage company. The day after Memorial Day alone, the Treasury will auction off $140 billion of T-bills. And that's only for 2 of the 6 bill auctions happening this coming week. So if you put in a few $1,000s and suddenly want or need to sell, you should be able to find a willing buyer at the market price within a short time under normal circumstances. Reason 5, T-bills are the easiest to understand and buy relative to Treasury bonds and TIPS. Once you've bought a few $100 or a few $1,000 of T-bills, are comfortable with the purchase process, and really understand how T-bills work, then you can dip your toes into Treasury bonds and eventually TIPS, which in my mind are the most complicated amongst the 3. And in fact, you're in good company if you start out with T-bills, because many of our Diamond NestEgg regulars started out in the same manner before moving to T-bonds, and as I mentioned earlier, some even to TIPS eventually. T-bills are especially easy for Diamond NestEgg and or bond newbies because we have plenty of video tutorials walking you through the auction process step by step, regardless of whether you're with Treasury Direct or at one of the leading brokers such as Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, E-Trade, or Merrill Edge. And if you really want to learn about bonds as fast as you can and start buying treasuries at some of the current attractive rates, then let me walk you through your bond journey step by step in our bond courses here. Take advantage of our Memorial Day flash sale and get 10% off with this coupon code through Monday, May 27th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. You can be up and running in 6 to 9 days if you watch 1 module per day in our courses. Or you can take your time and work through the details at your own pace, picking back up whenever you want, wherever you want. Everything is organized for you. Plus, we have quarterly online sessions where you can ask me your top of mind questions live. For those of you who are already in our courses and need a brush up on anything we've talked about so far, please refer to modules 3, 4, 5, and 6 on T-bills, T-notes, T-bonds, and tips in bond beginners. And here's what's next. Once you're comfortable with and understand T-bills and you're not so new to bond investing anymore. First, figure out what age and stage of life you're in and what the bond versus stock allocation should be in your overall portfolio. For our course folks, you can find more details in this bond module here on how to go about this step. Second, set your allocation for inflation versus non-inflation protected bonds within your bond portfolio. And keep in mind, these allocations can and usually do change over time. The closer you are to retirement, or if you're already in retirement, the more important it is to think about inflation protection within your portfolio. Third, decide on the maturities and quantities you want to purchase as well as the bond strategies that best suit you. For example, which Treasury auctions you want a dollar cost average into and in what amounts. And finally, my 3 personal tips for any stage of your financial journey, whether that's in bonds or equities. 1, start with small amounts where possible. 2, it's generally not a good idea to go all in. Diversify as appropriate. 3, don't buy what you don't understand. Hopefully, watching our videos regularly and being a part of this community has helped or will help with all these 3 points for many of you. And on that note, let's move on now to the next section of our video. As we so often do at the end of a week, let's compare Treasury yields from this past Friday versus the previous week. Here we have all the maturities that the Treasury issues at auction. Here's where yields stood this past Friday, and here's where yields stood at the end of the previous week. With the exception of the 3-month T-bill, which remains unchanged, and the 20-year T-bond, which went down by 1 basis point, bond yields overall were up a few basis points this week. Much of the movement in bond yields this week was a result of several top Fed officials speaking with the media about higher for longer rates. This Barron's article sums it up pretty well. Atlanta Federal Reserve President Raphael Bostic expects to hold interest rates steady for the long haul, noting that a return to the central bank's 2% annual inflation target could be a way off. Now, the higher for longer narrative is really nothing new for Diamond NestEgg regulars or anyone who's been following the Fed in recent months. But what made the market listen to this mantra a bit more attentively than usual may have been that so many Fed officials came out at the same time reiterating this higher for longer message. According to Bloomberg, Cleveland Fed Chief Loretta Mester and Boston Fed President Susan Collins supported Bostic's stickier than expected inflation and higher for longer rates view as well. And to put the cherry on top, so to say, for lack of a better analogy, the midweek release of the meeting minutes from the last Fed meeting further spooked all those in the market who have been rooting for rates to be lower and faster instead of higher for longer. Fed meeting minutes showed disappointment in the inflation readings for January, February, and March of this year, and many participants commented on their uncertainty about the degree of restrictiveness, meaning, do we need to raise rates again if this is what's needed to get to a sustainable inflation rate of 2% or below? And here's the kicker. There were some yeses. Various participants mentioned a willingness to tighten policy further should risks to inflation materialize in a way that such an action became appropriate. Those Fed meeting minutes sent bond yields up a fair bit towards the end of the week. So relative to the beginning of 2024, bond yields are nearly all still up, as you can see from this table comparing Treasury yields from this past Friday versus January 2nd. This row shows the increase or decrease in rates since the beginning of this year to the time of this taping. Increases in rates are shown in black and decreases in rates are shown in red. The 2-month Treasury is down only by 1 basis point, and the 3-month Treasury is unchanged again. Otherwise, rates continue to be higher overall across all the other maturities, and noticeably higher on the medium and long end. You can find more details on these rates for any day of the week that the bond market is open on the Treasury's Resource Center website here. All sources are linked below in the first pinned comment. And a big congratulations to all of you who purchased in this past week's 10-year TIPS reopening auction. This real yield of 2.184% is the highest real yield in over 15 years. So that was a recap of bond yields from last week. Now, let's take a look at the upcoming week's auctions and yield expectations for some of those auctions. So here we are at Treasury Direct's upcoming auctions page. If we scroll down, we can see that all the weekly T-bill and CMB auctions are happening. Of course, with the adjustment that the 13-week and 26-week T-bill auctions that would normally have happened on Memorial Day, they will get pushed to Tuesday. And as we shared in this community post this past Friday, do note that the auction closing times on Tuesday may differ from the normal Monday auction closing times. We can also see that 2-year T-notes, 5-year T-notes, and 7-year T-notes will be auctioned off as well this upcoming week. None of these are reopening auctions, so the coupon still remains to be determined on auction day. This 1-year 11-month FRN, a reopening auction of the 2-year FRN, is also on the upcoming week's auction schedule. At the time of this taping, here's what the coupon and the expected yield are for the 2-year T-note auction on Fidelity's platform. And here's what the coupon and the expected yield are for the 5-year T-note auction. And here's what the coupon and the expected yield are for the 7-year T-note auction. Do keep in mind that these numbers can and usually do change all the way up to the time of the auction. So, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. And if you did and want a deep dive into how to invest in bonds and build a bond portfolio, then check out our 2 new bond courses, Bond Beginners and Bond Masters here. As I mentioned earlier, the coupon code MEMSALE2024 is valid until Monday, May 27th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And yes, that's 10% off on top of this $100 savings when you buy both courses together as a bundle. Please also note that this will be our lowest offer for the rest of 2024 on this popular course bundle, and you won't see this attractive offer again after Memorial Day. Take advantage of some of these anticipated higher for longer interest rates and check out the links below this video for more details on our bond courses. And don't forget, your purchase is risk-free with our 7-day refund policy. All right, members, super savers, and bond course fans, good luck to everyone who's planning on buying at the upcoming week's auctions. And see you again very soon with more brand new wealth building content for your financial journey.